Hi everybody, sorry for that sharp exit. Times like these, deliveries, I have to go to the door, but I'm back. Michael's teaching Kensuke, hopefully, how to speak English, and he's asked him, so they've made a real bond, a real friendship. So let's find out how he gets on. It was the beginning of an English lesson that was to last for months. Every day, dawn to dusk, I translated the world around him into English. We did what we had always done. Now I talked for all the while, and he would echo every word, every phrase he wanted to. His brow would furrow with the effort of it. It was as if by saying each word he simply swallowed it into his brain. Once told, once practised, he would rarely forget, and if he did, he would always be very annoyed with himself. Sometimes, as I enunciated a new word, I noticed that his eyes would light up. He would be nodding and smiling almost as if he recognised the word, as if he was greeting an old friend. He would repeat it again and again, savouring the sound of it before committing it to memory for good. And of course, the more words he knew, the more he tried to experiment with them. Single words became clipped phrases, became entire sentences. His pronunciation, though, never did improve, however hard he tried. Michael was always Mika, sometimes Mika-san. Now at last we could talk more easily to one another. Long silence in which our friendship had been forged was over. It had never been a barrier between us, but it had been limiting. We were sitting by the cave mouth one sunset when he said, "You see now, if I understand, Mika-san, you tell me story of you, where you live, why you come here, my island, from baby to now. I listen." So I did. I told him about home, about my mother and my father, about the brick factory closing, about football with Eddie and the Mudlarks, about Peggy Sue and our voyage around the world, about football in Brazil and lions in Africa and spiders in Australia, about my mother being ill, about the night I fell overboard. "Very good, I understand, very good," he said when I'd finished. "So football you like?" "When I little, I play football too. Very happy time, long ago now in Japan, in my home." He sat in silence for some moments. "You very long way from home, Mika-san. You very sad sometimes, I see. So I make you happy. Tomorrow we go fishing and maybe I tell you my story too. My story. Your story? Maybe same story now." The sun had suddenly gone. We stood up and bowed to one another. "Oyasumi Masai," he said. "Good night," I said. It was the only time of the day he ever spoke Japanese, though he did sing in Japanese mostly. I had taught him 10 Green Bottles, which always made him laugh when he sang it. I loved his laugh. It was never really loud, more prolonged chuckle, but it always warmed my heart. The next morning he picked up 2 of his fishing rods and a net and led the way into the forest. Excuse me. "Today we catch big fish, Mika, not small fish," he announced. He was taking us to the part of the island where I had been washed up all those months before, but rarely had cause to visit since, because there was little or no fruit to be found there. We had to beat a difficult path through the forest before joining a cliff path that wound its way down to a hidden sandy bay. As we emerged from the forest onto the beach, Stella ran off, bounding at once into the shallows, barking at me to play with her. Suddenly, Kensuke caught me by the arm. "You look, Mika-san. What can you see?" His eyes were full of mischief. I didn't know what I was supposed to be looking for. "Nothing here, yes. I very clever fellow. You watch, I show you." He made for the end of the beach and I followed. Once there, he began to pull and tug at the undergrowth. To my surprise, it simply came away in his hands. I saw first what looked like a log lying in the sand, but then, as he dragged away more branches, I saw it was part of a boat, an outrigger, a long, wide dugout with a frame of outriggers on either side. It was covered in canvas, which he folded back very slowly, chuckling to himself as he did so. And there, lying in the bottom of the boat beside a long oar, was my football. He reached in and tossed it to me. It was softer now, and much of the white leather was cracked and discoloured, but in places I could still make out Eddie's name. So that was the end of chapter 7. Sorry for my interruption. So, Kensuke and Michael have made friends. They're telling each other, hopefully we might find out Kensuke's story. We've discovered that there's a boat on the island. I wonder what's going to happen next. I wonder if you can think about that. How do you think about Michael now? What do you think about their friendship? Till next time. See you soon.